Real people, real confessions, the stories you weren't supposed to hear. Welcome to Beyond Reddit Stories. I wasn't allowed to go to my own father's funeral. Not because I was overseas, or because I was sick, or because I had fallen out with him, but because my stepmother said I didn't belong there anymore. It was a Tuesday morning when I got the call. I still remember the exact time at 13 a.m. I had just woken up, and my phone buzzed with a message from one of my dad's old coworkers. It said, "I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. The service is today, right? I wish I could be there." I froze. What service? I hadn't heard a word about my father even being sick, let alone dying. My hands shook as I called the only number I could think of, hers. My stepmother. She didn't answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. So I texted, "Is this true? Is Dad gone?" 1 minute passed, then 2. Finally, she replied, "Yes, he passed on Saturday. The funeral is private. Please don't come. Please don't come." I read that message over and over again, like maybe if I stared long enough, the words would rearrange themselves into something less cruel, but they didn't. She meant it. I wasn't welcome at the funeral of the man who raised me, the man whose laugh used to echo through our small living room, the man who used to make me pancakes shaped like animals when I was 6. I was his only child, but apparently not his family anymore. I sat on the edge of my bed, completely numb. My mind was racing, but my body wouldn't move. I don't even know how long I sat there. 10 minutes, an hour, time didn't make sense anymore. All I could think was, what had I done that was so unforgivable? And maybe deeper than that. What did he do that she was so desperate to keep me away from saying goodbye? That's when I realized this wasn't just about grief. This was about power, control, secrets. The kind of secrets that only reveal themselves when someone dies. And this is where it all started. Before everything fell apart, I used to think my childhood was normal. Not perfect, but normal. My mom died when I was 8. Breast cancer. It happened too fast for me to really understand it. One day she was reading me bedtime stories. And the next, my dad was telling me she wouldn't be coming home from the hospital. After that, it was just me and him. He was quiet in his grief, but he never let it drown me. He packed my school lunches every morning. He brushed my hair before school, even though he was terrible at it. He sat through every awkward school recital, clapping louder than any other parent. He didn't talk much about my mom, but he made sure I never forgot her. For years, it was just the two of us. And somehow, we made it work. I never felt like something was missing, even when other kids had both parents cheering from the sidelines. Then came her. I was 15 when he introduced her to me. "This is Claire," he said, his hand resting gently on her back. "She's special to me. I hope you two can get along." Claire was beautiful in that effortless way, sleek blonde hair, tailored clothes, the kind of woman who always smelled like citrus and clean sheets. She smiled at me with perfect teeth and brought me a box of pastries from some expensive bakery in town. At first, I wanted to like her. She tried too hard. Maybe. She asked about my grades. She complimented my outfits. She baked cookies that somehow tasted just like the ones my mom used to make. I remember wondering how she even knew. And for a while, I let myself believe she really cared. They got married 6 months later. It was a small ceremony, no drama, no weird feelings at least. None that I dared say out loud. And for the first couple of years, things were okay. Claire wasn't cruel. She wasn't one of those evil stepmothers you see in movies. She was kind, polite, put together. But she was also calculated, controlled. Like everything she did was part of some carefully written script. She never raised her voice. But she didn't need to. Her silences could freeze a room. And slowly, so slowly, I didn't even notice at first, she started drawing invisible lines between me and the rest of the house. It started small. A suggestion here, a comment there. Maybe it's time you started doing your own laundry. I think your room would be better in the basement, more privacy for you. And the baby? Yes, the baby. She got pregnant a year after they married. And that's when everything changed. Suddenly, the house wasn't mine anymore. My photos disappeared from the hallway wall, replaced by baby bump pictures and ultrasound frames. My dad became quieter, more tired, more absent. When I asked for time with just the two of us, our tradition of Saturday morning pancakes, Claire always had something else planned. I didn't fight it. At first, I told myself it was normal. Families grow, priorities shift. I was almost an adult anyway, wasn't I supposed to be independent? But deep down, something felt off. I started spending more time out of the house. I stayed late at school, took weekend jobs, anything to avoid that subtle tension that waited for me every time I stepped through the front door. I still loved my dad. I still wanted to be part of that family. But the more I tried to hold on, the more invisible I felt. And by the time I was 20, I left. I packed a small bag, moved in with a friend, and told myself it was temporary. But months passed, then years. And I realized they didn't ask me to come back. At first, I told myself I had chosen to leave. That I left the house to chase independence, to figure out who I was, that it had nothing to do with Claire, or the silences, or the fact that my dad had become a stranger in his own home. But the truth? I left because I felt like a guest in my own family. I left because I was slowly being erased politely, quietly, and completely. For a while, I still visited, on holidays, birthdays. I'd bring gifts for my little half-brother smiling for the camera, sitting at the dinner table like everything was fine. But it wasn't fine. There were small things, like how Claire always called me her when talking about me, even when I was in the room, or how my dad never looked me in the eye when we were alone, or how my old bedroom had been turned into a craft room for Claire's Etsy business. Eventually, the visits stopped altogether. I kept expecting my dad to reach out, to call, to ask why I hadn't come by, but weeks passed, then months, nothing. I was 24 when I heard that he was sick. It wasn't from Claire. It was from one of our old neighbors, Mrs. Grant, the woman who used to bring us banana bread every Christmas. She saw me at a grocery store and said, "I'm so sorry to hear about your father. You must be spending every minute by his side." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Her eyes widened. "You didn't know. He's in the hospital. Liver failure, I think." I left my cart in the middle of the aisle and ran outside. My fingers trembled as I searched for the hospital's number. When I finally got through, they told me he wasn't taking visitors, unless they were on the approved family list. And I wasn't on it. I tried calling Claire. She picked up after the fourth attempt. When she heard my voice, she sighed. "You really think now is the time to start pretending you care?" I froze. "He's my dad. He's barely conscious. He doesn't need stress right now," she said, her voice calm, cold, and frankly, neither do I. "I just want to see him." "He doesn't want that. He made that very clear." I remember standing in the parking lot, phone pressed to my ear, listening to her hang up without another word. Was she telling the truth? Did he really not want to see me, or had she decided that for him? A few days later, I tried again, this time in person. I went to the hospital, waited outside the wing he was supposedly in. I even brought a small photo of me and him at the beach when I was 7. I thought maybe I could show it to a nurse. Maybe someone would believe I had the right to be there. But when I gave my name, the nurse looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, there's a note on his chart, immediate family only, no exceptions." I asked if I could leave something for him, a note, anything. She hesitated, then nodded. "Write it quickly, I can't promise he'll be awake." I scribbled down the words, "I miss you. Please fight. I'm still your daughter." I never found out if he read it. He passed away 4 days later. No phone call, no warning, just a text from the same coworker as before telling me the date of the funeral, assuming I'd be there. And when I tried to go, that's when I got the message from Claire. "Please don't come, this is a private service." Private? That word kept repeating in my mind like an echo. What was she trying to keep private? The grief, the ceremony, or the fact that, even in death, she'd found a way to cut me out completely? I thought that was the worst of it. But I had no idea that my father had left me something, and that Claire had been keeping it from me. I didn't go to the funeral. I stood outside the gates of the cemetery, dressed in black, holding the same photograph I had once brought to the hospital, the one where I was sitting on my dad's shoulders at the beach, both of us laughing at something I can't even remember now. A security guard approached me politely. "I'm sorry, miss, This is a private event. Name. I gave it to him. He checked a list. You're not on here. I nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just stood there in the heat of the late morning sun, gripping that photo like it could anchor me to something that still made sense. I watched from a distance as people I barely recognized walked toward the tent, past rows of flowers and solemn faces. I searched the crowd for Claire, for my half-brother, for someone who might look back and realize something was missing. But no one did. It was like I had never existed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the maybes. Maybe Dad had written me a letter. Maybe he had left me something. Maybe there was a reason Claire wanted me to stay away. So the next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called his lawyer, Mr. Dalton. He'd handled the sale of our old house when I was 13. I hadn't seen him in years, but he remembered me. His voice softened when I introduced myself. I'm sorry for your loss, he said. Did my father leave anything for me? I asked. Anything at all? There was a long pause on the other end. Then he said, Actually, yes, he did. My heart skipped. I haven't been able to reach you, he continued. Claire told me you were estranged. I assumed. She lied. Another pause. Well, he said, then I think we should meet. The next afternoon, I sat in his office, hands clenched in my lap. As he pulled a thin envelope from his drawer, my name was written on the front in my dad's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. I stared at it for a moment before opening it. Inside was a single page, folded neatly. It wasn't long. It didn't need to be. My sweet girl, I don't know if this will ever reach you. I hope it does. I hope you're sitting in front of Dalton right now, and that you know, I never stopped thinking about you, not for one day. I was a coward. I let Claire control more than she should have. I let her tell me that giving you space was for the best, that pushing you out was somehow what you needed. I wanted to believe her, but deep down, I knew better. I miss you every day, and I'm sorry for all of it. Please forgive me. There was a tiny drop of ink near the bottom. A smudge, like maybe he had hesitated. Or cried. I cried. Right there in that office. I let go of everything I'd been holding inside. After I finished reading, Mr. Dalton gave me another document, my father's will. He had left a few things for me. A pocket watch that belonged to his father, a savings account he'd kept in my name, and a note in the legal language that read, To my daughter, should she choose to receive it, I leave these pieces of myself and my love. I looked up at Mr. Dalton. Claire didn't want me to have this, did she? He sighed. She insisted you wouldn't want anything. She said you two hadn't spoken in years. That was true, but not by my choice. I left the office with the letter clutched in my hand. That night, I read it over again, 10 times, maybe 20. I tried to imagine what it must have taken for him to write it. The shame, the regret, but also the love. And slowly, something inside me shifted. I had spent so long wondering if I mattered, if I was worth grieving, if I had imagined the connection between me and the man who raised me. But I hadn't. I was his daughter. Even if Claire tried to erase that from the world, she couldn't erase it from him. Or from me. For a long time, I thought the only way to survive was to forget. Forget the sound of his voice. Forget the weight of the silence. Forget the way it felt to be left outside the gates alone. But reading that letter changed something in me. It didn't erase the pain. It didn't undo the years of distance, or the funeral I never got to attend. But it gave me something else. Truth. And with that truth came peace. I started to heal. Slowly, I allowed myself to remember the good things without guilt. I framed that photo of us at the beach and put it on my desk. I even began writing journaling every memory I could still recall, afraid that if I didn't write them down, they'd vanish like the life I never got to finish with him. Eventually, I decided to share my story, first in a blog post, then in an essay. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. I just told the truth. And to my surprise, people responded. Hundreds of messages came in, strangers, some from daughters who felt forgotten, some from sons who were cut out of family funerals, others from stepchildren trying to find their place in families that never fully welcomed them. They all carried the same ache, the feeling of being almost loved. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. None of us are. We live in a world that likes to pretend family is simple. Blood ties, legal documents, smiles and photo frames. But real family, it's messy, it's complicated, and sometimes it's broken in ways you can't always see. Still, there's something powerful in claiming your own story. Not waiting for permission, not waiting to be included, not waiting for the ending to make sense. Just standing in your truth and saying I was here, I mattered, I still do. So if you're listening to this, and you've ever felt pushed out of your own family, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me sooner. Your worth isn't defined by who invites you to grieve. You are allowed to miss someone, even if the world tells you you're not part of the goodbye. You are allowed to carry love quietly, fiercely, and fully. And most of all, you are not invisible. That letter from my dad didn't fix everything. There are still moments when I wonder what our last conversation could have been, if I'd gotten the chance. There are nights when I still replay old memories like a movie I can't stop watching. But I've stopped blaming myself for the ending I never got. Instead, I've started building a new beginning. A beginning where I don't stay silent, where I don't shrink myself to fit into someone else's version of family, where I no longer feel ashamed for grieving the way I needed to. And if you've listened this far, maybe part of you needed to hear that too. Maybe you've been left out of something you should have been part of. Maybe someone tried to rewrite your place in a story that was always yours. If that's you, you're not alone. I want to invite you to share your story, right here, in the comments. Have you ever felt excluded from saying goodbye to someone you loved? Has grief ever made you question your place in a family or in your own history? Tell me. Tell us. Because stories like this don't just belong to me. They belong to so many of us sitting quietly with questions that never got answered, love that never got closure. And if this story resonated with you even just a little, please consider subscribing to this channel. Here, we don't just tell stories. We open space for honesty, for healing, for truths that are hard to say out loud. And maybe your story will help someone else feel seen too. So thank you for listening, for feeling, for remembering with me. This goodbye wasn't the one I wanted. But maybe sharing it is the beginning of something better.